Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks, Emily. And I want to welcome all of you tonight. My name is Vance Friedenberg. I'm the chair of the Department of Biology. And tonight we've got two other people that that are going to be presenting or talking tonight. First is Emily Stenson, who is an undergraduate specialist that works in the biology of the Department of Biology office. And the other is Dr. Tomás Magaña, who is a practicing medical doctor. And what else can I tell you? The Department of Biology is a really diverse, really amazing department here at San Francisco State University. We have approximately 1,600 undergraduate majors in biology. We have 4 different emphases in biology. We also have a graduate program that has about 250 graduate students that do master's programs. We have 41 faculty, 41 to 44, depending on how you count it, that are tenure track faculty that do research in their labs. And then we have another about 30 faculty that are lecturers in our department. So our department is one of the biggest on campus, and it's a really amazing place. And I want to welcome all of you. Y quiero decirles también que yo me llamo Vance Bredenburg, soy de México, no sé si notan, pero somos un departamento muy diverso, and so everyone is welcome. That's what I was saying in Spanish, is that we are a very diverse department, and we welcome all of you. We're going to be talking about the pre-health program at San Francisco State University. And the first thing I wanted to just point out is that it's not a major. We are an undergraduate institution that has a diversity of majors, and we can prepare students for working within the health field across a wide array of majors in biology. So I just wanted to bring that up at the beginning. And from there, I want to say first, Emily, did you want to say anything from the get-go?
I'm just glad that you guys all showed up. That's a good sign. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm the main point of contact for the biology office. Also, even non-bio majors, if you want like to get involved with biology at some point or anything like pre-health, I can also try and guide you in the right direction.
Thanks, Emily. So for all of you who are interested, Emily and I are both in the main office of the biology department, which is on the 5th floor of Hensel Hall. I'm actually an ecologist, so I work on amphibians. And although I don't work on humans, I do work on disease, which has a lot of overlap with sort of us understanding how disease works in vertebrates. And so I work on a fungal pathogen that affects amphibians. And a lot of the work that I do is very fundamental to our understanding of disease ecology. So although I don't work on humans, there's a lot of overlap between at least the basis of biology, the foundations of disease, and how disease affects, in particular, vertebrate hosts. So I just wanted to put that out there, that there are many avenues that people take to get from where you are today to working in the health professions. And although I don't do that, I would say I'm a PhD, but I'm not a real doctor in the sense of I'm not a medical doctor, like our guest tonight, Dr. Tomás Magaña. So I'd like to introduce him. First of all, Tomás, thank you very much for being here today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Vance. It's a pleasure to be here. And I appreciate your words on that. Emily, I think you were going to start us off with the PowerPoint if you wanted to host that, and then we can get the discussion going with that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
What I am going to say just to start with, guys, for those of you who are on this webinar, is that this is designed to be a very, very broad overview of those folks who wish to pursue a career in healthcare and what are the considerations. Realizing that each particular program whether it be medical school, pharmacy, physician assistant, nursing, whatever, has its own very specific criteria for enrollment and eligibility. So what we're going to do is provide a broad overview. I know some of you may have very specific questions with regard to your own particular situations that we will not be able to address today, because this isn't designed to provide individual advising, but rather to give a broad overview. So if you do have broad questions and general questions, please put them in the chat. Emily will be kind of monitoring them and will address them at the end with regard to themes. And then I'll introduce myself a little bit in just a moment.
Okay. Do you guys see the first slide that says welcome? Okay, good. My worst fear is that it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm just gonna start from this. Okay. So we kind of already did our intros and everything, so I'm just gonna move past this. Kalechi couldn't be here today, but she works with SF Build at SFSU, and she also is like a good resource for pre-health. Okay, so now I'm just so we know like who we're talking to, I'm going to launch a poll. And you'll just answer which career you're most interested in. Let's see. Polls. Launch. And then it should hopefully show up on your guys' screens. Oh, yeah, people are answering. Okay, everyone answered. It looks like most of you are interested in being a physician, some for dentistry, a few for nursing, optometry, pharmacy, a few for physical therapy, a few vets.
Can you share those surveys, Emily?
Yeah, here, let me end it and then share results.
Just we get a general sense. There it goes. Okay.
Okay. Okay, and then just so like a little reminder as to like why you guys are here. This is just a rhetorical question. You could just think to yourself, what got you interested in healthcare? And then here I have added the links for resources about different health careers. So these are actually really useful. For example, if you went to the dentistry one, you could sign up for webinars for students that are interested in becoming a dentist and things like that. So a lot of useful resources for students. And then don't worry about like taking notes on this, because I'll actually send you guys the PowerPoint after we're done with this. So you don't have to freak out about making sure that you have all these links, because I'll share them with you guys after. Okay, and then today we're going to talk about academic planning. So which major is best for my career path? How do I decide which courses to take? How do I take good care of my GPA? And then advanced degree application process. How do I get good letters of rec? What should I put in my personal statement? And then how do I get real world clinical or research experience? And then any other tips or resources? So first, which majors are best for my career path? I feel like this is a commonly asked question, and doesn't really like matter which major. Like it's not like, oh, if you want to get into med school, like you should have this exact major. It's more like which classes you pick. And then yeah, it can be any degree. You again just need to make sure that you take the appropriate prereq courses. All biology degrees include most of the prereqs that you'll need for a health career. If you're another major that's closely intertwined, it'll most likely be also the same. But make sure that you're doing a major that you're passionate about. And then, yeah, for this, you might want to make sure that if you have specific schools that you want to get into, look at their website and see what is required for their programs. And then try and see which courses at SFSU would then transfer to those prereqs. So you want to make sure that you're not like at the end of your time at SFSU and then you're like, oh, I actually should have taken like these classes. So just look at your school's website that you're interested in and then see what they require. Because sometimes students will come in and they're like, they'll ask me, should I take this? And I'm like, personally, like, it just depends on which school you're like thinking of applying to. And then if a lot of them correlate, you might as well take those courses just to be safe, because you don't know like which schools you'll end up getting into and stuff. And then always meet with your major advisor and share your career path. And they'll help you create like a roadmap for graduation. This is the link for biology advising, but if you're another major, just meet with your major advisor then. How do I take good care of my GPA? For this, while this is undoubtedly an important criteria, don't be defined by your GPA. When planning your course schedule, you should consider the workload that will allow you to be successful. So you want to make sure that you're not overloading yourself. If you have a job or caretaking responsibilities, then consider slowing down and taking fewer units. This may this may mean that it takes 5 or 6 years to graduate, but that's totally okay. We generally recommend no more than 6 to 9 units of STEM subjects per semester. So yeah, whatever your circumstance is, figure out what fits best for you. You just want to make sure that you're not taking too many like hits overall to your GPA because you're trying to do too much at the same time. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on that. And then if you're not meeting your own expectations for grades, seek help. There's specific groups and mechanisms on campus that are designed to support student success. For instance, you can go to the Tutoring and Academics Support Center. They have standing appointments or drop-in hours to check in about coursework. So you can also, I think on Navigator, you can make appointments with them and pick like a specific course that maybe you're having issues with. And then they'll find like a tutor for you that tutors in that course. So that's a good resource right there. And then I can help you if you need to submit a request to withdraw, or you're trying to get a grade replacement, such as like credit to a letter grade or letter grade to credit. And then also with incompletes, I can help you guys with that. And then I think Tomás was going to start at this slide, if that's good with you, Tomás.
Yeah, that's fine, Emily. Thank you.
Okay.
So, hello, everybody. Let me just real quickly. My name is Dr. Tomás Magaña. I am a physician. I'm a pediatrician, adolescent medicine specialist, but I'm also the co-director of the Aspiring Physicians Program with the UCSF Latinx Center of Excellence at San Francisco State. We have a summer program that is directed specifically to those students who identify as Latinx or African American and are currently full-time students at San Francisco State who have completed certain eligibility, and there will be more information coming about that program in the future. So Emily will ask to send it out to all of you. So I've done a lot of pre-health and pre-medical advising. I'm also the medical director of the PA program at Samuel Merritt University in Oakland. So I have a lot of background in this. And I want to iterate or stress a few things that Emily brought up. And that's related to kind of majors and GPAs. So first and foremost, I want to stress the fact that you do not, let me repeat, do not have to have a science major to be eligible to apply for health profession schools. If indeed science is your interest and your passion, and that is genuinely what you want to major in, then by all means major in that. The most important thing about professional schools is that you do well academically and that you do well in sciences, because you have to prove to them that you have the ability to manage a rigorous science load well. And the only way you're going to be able to show that you are able to manage sciences well is by doing well during your undergraduate career and doing well on your standardized exams like the MCAT or GRE, whatever it is. The way students will inevitably, or not inevitably, but the way students often will sabotage themselves is they will not take care of their study habits and their GPAs during the early years of their college. So some students may figure it out during their junior or senior years, right? But their GPAs during their first and their second years have been pretty poor. And that could be for a number of different reasons. Maybe you're the first generation in your family to go to college and you didn't have the academic preparation. And so you didn't really know how to take on college courses and do well in them. Or maybe you had to work full-time job and take a full-time load. Or maybe you never learned how to ask for help. I mean, these are all of the different things that students have struggled with that impacts their academic performance. It is very difficult. If you are a fourth year or a fifth year and your GPA is fairly low, it's very difficult to make up for that time, even with the post-bac program. So the best thing you can do for yourself, if you want to make yourself competitive for professional schools, is to take care of your GPA. And so that means do everything that Emily said. Don't overload your schedule. So what a lot of students mistakenly do is they'll take biology, chemistry, physics, all those hard courses in 1 year. Unless that's a requirement for your major, there's no need to load yourself so heavily in sciences. Spread it out. Make sure that you give yourself enough time to be able to do well in your science courses and your prerequisite courses. Because medical schools, nursing schools are going to look at not only your entire transcript over the time, but they're also going to look at the trajectory. They're going to look at performance. If for whatever reason you started a little rough during your first 2 years, but your last year show a significant improvement because you've shown that you've been able to figure it out or you've made the adjustments, that will work in your favor. So you always want to end your academic record in college on a very high note. Do as well as you can. But the other thing that a lot of young people do is that they don't reach out for help and they don't utilize the campus services for tutoring or academic support. They just figure I'm going to get through it, I'll struggle, and they don't do as well. Well, that grade stays in your record and you can't take that off once it's on. So it's best to do prevention as opposed to crisis management. Take care of yourself, balance out your schedule, ask for help. Don't overload your units in hard sciences, especially in the first 2 years, and get effective advising. Okay, go to your teacher, your professor's office hours. Ask the questions. Turn to your peers for some support and the upperclassmen. Do whatever it is you need to do to optimize your success in your science classes, because in the end, it will only help you, and you won't have to make up for earlier mistakes. Is that clear? Okay. So let's talk about letters of recommendation. Are letters of recommendation important? Absolutely they are. And that's for any kind of professional school, right? So when is the time to start cultivating relationships with your letter writers? As soon as possible. You want to be thinking about that through the whole time of your undergraduate career, because The people you want to ask letters of recommendation for are those people who can not only comment on your academic performance, but also comment on you as a person and as a student. So just because you got an A in a class does not make that person the right person to write a letter of recommendation for you, because all they're going to be able to say is, this student got an A in my class and they seem smart enough. No, I read hundreds of letters during an application process, and I read, letters from professors who gave an A+, but they say nothing about the student's abilities, how motivated they were, how inquisitive they were, how intellectually stimulating they were, whatever it may be. The way you're going to nurture that relationship with a potential recommender is by showing up and being present. And that may not necessarily be your style. You may be the student who prefers to sit in the back and kind of learn passively and not ask questions. That's not ultimately going to be in your favor when you're asking for those letters, unless there is some way to reveal to a professor or whoever your recommender is something a little bit more deeper about yourself. So what are some ways? Ask questions in class. Let the professors know how curious you are about learning the material and how engaged you are and how motivated, because I can assure you, right, Vance, you're going to remember that student, right? You're going to remember that student. Actively participating in classroom discussions. Again, the more engaged you are, the more likely that professor is going to remember who you are and write you a strong letter of recommendation. Always showing curiosity, demonstrating a commitment to learning. And how do you do that? Again, showing up to office hours, participating in group discussions, asking the questions, following up, right? Whatever it is to make yourself known. And then always being a team player. Instructors expect to be helping students this way. It's not an imposition for them to ask for help. So asking for help is something that is expected of every student. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Now, again, guys, these are, while Emily is shifting the slide, I am talking very specifically about your letters of recommendation from professors. But realize that for many graduate programs and professional programs, we're not going to just want letters from professors. We're going to want letters from other people in your kind of academic professional journey who can comment on other aspects of you. So if there is an employment or an extracurricular activity or some organization that you've been actively involved with, somebody who knows you well and has seen you in action would be a great person to write that letter of recommendation, to write a recommendation for you. If you do a summer research program or some sort of volunteer program where you've worked very closely with someone, again, who can comment on your commitments, your values, your passion, your journey, that is a strong letter. We don't want to see, and I'm talking again from PE schools and medical schools particularly, we don't want to see just a long list of professor recommendations. You absolutely should have some that are from academic professors, but we also want to see other folks. Does a letter from a family friend or a family member, is that it? Do you think it's a strong letter? No, no, because how can a family friend or a personal family member be an objective assessment of who you are? So don't be, that those aren't generally strong letters to consider to submit. What should you put in your personal statement? Now, this is one of, along with your GPA and obviously your letters of recommendation, your personal statement is probably the most important element of your application, because it's the personal statement that tells us who you are, what your values are, what your lived journey is, what your narrative is. What was it in your life that led you to this particular decision to apply to the program that you're applying to? What struggles have you encountered that you surmounted, and what lessons did you learn from that? A good personal statement is going to take me on a journey of your life and who you are. Not every detail, of course, but certainly one that is open, authentic, and not a canned text. I want to go to medical school because I've always wanted to help people and I dream of serving people. Well, it's expected that everybody who's applying to health wants to help people. So there's no need to say that. That's an expectation. And if that is the majority of your personal statement, it's not a strong personal statement. Your personal statement should be as personal as you're willing to make it to be, right? What qualities do you bring to the profession that you want? What obstacles have you overcome? And you want to give specific examples, but you don't want to just highlight the obstacles, but rather the lessons you learned from those obstacles. How has it made you a better person? How has it informed you about the practice of whatever healthcare you want to go into? And what is your motivation for being a healthcare provider? Again, it should be honest, it should be authentic, it should, if possible, be unique, right? But this notion of kind of, I want to help people and I want to serve communities and I want to cure diabetes, we hear those all the time, guys. So what is it that's uniquely your story? Remember that reviewers read hundreds of personal statements, hundreds. And so you want to be that applicant who really kind of sticks out in that story that gives me a sense of, oh, you know, this is a unique story. I want to learn more. I want to invite this person to be interviewed because I want to learn more about them. Okay. Let's move forward. Now, the question always comes up of how do I get real world clinical or research experience? And the truth is that for some programs, like medical school, you do not have to have clinical experience to be a competitive applicant. Okay? You do not have had to work in a hospital or in a healthcare agency to be an applicant. For programs like physician assistant, you do have to have patient care experience. You have to have at least 1,000 hours of paid or volunteer clinical experience. But how that's defined can be broadly interpreted. So it's important that you do the research on what field you want to go into and see what the requirements are with regard to specific experience that is required. If you want to get clinical experience, well, I have to say, that can be somewhat difficult these days because we had a little something called the pandemic come up. And during the pandemic, opportunities for volunteering and stuff like that were pretty much shut down across the board. It's only now that healthcare agencies are beginning to open up their doors to clinical experiences for volunteers. So realize that it can still be very, very difficult to get those clinical experiences. But there are things like virtual shadowing experiences that are out there now that are made to some students, or you can volunteer at any one of these agencies that is listed. So Emily has listed a few organizations in the Bay Area that may have some volunteer experiences available. Realize that those may be very difficult to obtain and there may be a long waiting list for that. But let me talk about quality of experience for programming. What a graduate and professional school is going to want to know that if you've taken the time to gather experience, and maybe that's after you graduate, right? You graduate from undergraduate, you take what we call a gap year or a prep year to kind of prepare your application and gather experience. What does not matter is what that experience is, but what the quality of that experience was on your learning. So if you took a year off and you say you've done something like maybe an AmeriCorps program or Teach for America, or worked and volunteered and led a health education program at your local school or at a local clinic, or did something where it showed motivation, leadership, you worked with teams, you got that experience and you have some understanding of how health is impacted in various communities, that is an extraordinarily powerful experience for you to bring to your application. But because, let me ask you, if I'm going to be asking you during your interview, tell me about that experience you had and what you learned for it. Imagine the difference of what you're going to be able to tell me if you were doing some service work that you were passionate about versus volunteering, in a clinic, taking lab samples to the lab. Yeah, that might be working in a hospital and you can mark that down, but what did it really teach you about yourself and what did it really teach you about healthcare? That's very different than if you were scribing in an emergency room, working one by one with a physician in the ER, or you implementing a reproductive health education outreach effort for middle school girls in East Oakland, California. Those are very, very rich experiences. Some of them, the strongest medical students and PA students medical students I've worked with are those who have done the Peace Corps, have done Teach for America, have worked in nonprofits doing COVID outreach. There's an array of really rich experiences that you can bring to your application that would be a lot stronger than doing some kind of volunteer experience in the clinical arena. Why don't you move forward? Oh, let me also address the research issue. Is research mandatory? Depends upon the program. Research experience is not always an essential requirement for medical school, and it's certainly not a requirement for PA programs, nor do I believe for nursing programs. If you have an interest in research, do it, pursue it. It will enhance your learning. It will certainly expand your awareness. Research can be broadly defined. It could be everything from working in a laboratory, doing bench work, to doing community research, right? Qualitative research. There's a whole public health research. There's a huge array of research opportunities that you can participate in. But imagine, if you're in a lab washing dishes and you count that as research experience, that's not a really high quality experience. And what have you learned from it? So always again, ask the questions. What is the quality of the experience going to be for me? And what do I hope to learn from it? Because that's ultimately what I'm going to want, what I would ask you guys write in your personal statement or in your supplementary documents for professional schools. And here's some other resources that you might want to check into for possible clinical volunteer experiences. And again, some additional ones for some volunteer abroad programs. International work is always a fun thing. It offers a lot of great, unique experience. You can talk about, cross-cultural issues in healthcare, the notion of culturally competent or responsive healthcare practices. All of those are really important. Let me talk a little bit about kind of understanding the landscape of healthcare. One of the most important things that you guys can do to make yourself stand out and be a really competitive applicant is understanding the landscape of the particular field that you want to go into. So in other words, if you're interested in being a physician, it is important to understand what are the challenges that medical healthcare providers are facing right now. What is this notion of managed care? What is this notion of lack of access to healthcare or social determinants of healthcare, right? The more you understand about the challenges that current professionals in the field you're interested in are facing right now, and the more you do interviews and talk to professionals about their perspectives, and you can talk with some agency and knowledge about it during your interviews, the more you will stand out as somebody who's done their homework and really knows what they're getting themselves into. And that requires doing your homework. And that requires talking to professionals and asking them those hard questions. What do you like most about your profession? What do you find are the biggest challenges that you're facing nowadays? What do you see some of the greatest challenges on the horizon? Because one of those questions during your interview may be, what do you feel are the 3 biggest challenges facing in the next 10 years? Would you be able to answer that question? A good applicant might be able to answer that. Okay, move forward. So I think we have some time for some Q&As. We have about 20 minutes left. If any of you have some questions or want some clarification of anything we covered, either put it in the chat or just go ahead and raise your hand.
We
Or
have one from Adam already. He said how to obtain shadowing hours or how to ask to obtain shadowing hours.
yeah, that really depends upon the specialty you're interested in. There are programs out there, summer programs that do provide some shadowing experiences. And I think it's important to do your homework and look at kind of the website. And what I'm going to do, just so you guys know here, I'm going to share a resource from my program called Faces for the Future that has a list of different experiences and programs. Let me pull that up real quickly. These are summer programs and academic year programs that you might be interested in doing. Here, hold on. Let me pull these up real quick. Sorry. All right. I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay. And you'll see that we have tried to inventory an array of different programs that provide clinical experiences, research experiences for college students and for high school students, kind of broadly defined. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it is some kind of in the local area. With regard to very specific shadowing hours, you know, that is a difficult question to answer for a lot of reasons. Because sometimes it's dependent upon who you know, right? It is very, and an organization's capacity. There are a lot of restrictions right now around safety and something called HIPAA that can be barriers to getting direct clinical experience. So sometimes you have to be through a formal program that provides the appropriate training so that you can go in patient kind of areas. That's why it's always best to go through a particular program if possible, or through a volunteer department at a local agency so that you can get the appropriate health clearances done and the appropriate kind of training to give you the kind of access you want. I do not advise that you kind of reach out to a doctor and ask if you can shadow, because right now healthcare providers are very burdened with having to deal with post-pandemic world, and they get requests all the time for these kind of opportunities. So if you go do those cold emails out, chances are you're probably not going to get a good response. For additional experience, right? If you do want to enhance your skill set, what a lot of students will do is do certification programs. And there's a lot of really wonderful certification programs that are easy access. Patient advocate, patient navigators, digital navigators, community healthcare workers, CNAs, medical assistants, phlebotomy, scribe. There's a scribe program at Stanford called COMET, or clinical research associates, where you can actually get that kind of experience after you graduate. My suggestion is, guys, is that during the academic year, your focus needs to be on your studies and making sure you do as well academically as you can, and then participate in whatever campus-based activities that are there to support kind of your development and growth. By no means should your extracurricular and your work expectations interfere with your ability to do well academically. And if you feel that you are having a hard time struggling your academics and doing well with whatever else is going on in your life, and your grades are suffering, you're going to have to rebalance that. And that means maybe reducing your credits if you can't give up the job because you have to pay rent, right? Reducing your credits so it's a more manageable workload, and making sure that you have good time management skills so you get A's and B's in those classes. But the goal is not to pick up more extracurricular at the expense of your academics. I don't know if that's really was answering your question specifically, but it's the best I can do right now.
We have another. What would the course of action be if we were already at the end of our undergraduate career and performed poorly in the beginning?
So it really depends upon what your program that you're applying to. there are things called post-bac programs, which you may have heard about. There are both informal and formal post-bac programs, and post-bac means just post-baccalaureate, right? For medical school, there are post-bac programs that you can apply to. There's several kind of in California, including one at San Francisco State, that will allow you to take additional courses and provide kind of the wraparound support services to improve your GPA. Okay. Those programs can be pricey and can be quite competitive, but they are a way of improving your GPA if you take the time. Then there are those what we call informal post-bac programs where you can take classes on your own at a local community college or whatever after you graduate to improve your GPA, right? Or to fill in some of those gaps that you weren't able to complete where you were undergraduate. The goal is that you have to do well in those. And if your GPA is quite low, you have to be sober about the reality of being able to get your GPA that far up. So if you're like a 2.3, taking additional classes after college may not really increase that GPA that much. Again, it depends upon the schools, right? For medical schools, you generally want GPAs above 3.0, 3.3 above that. But does that mean people with lesser GPAs get in? Certainly. It's the whole student. There's something called holistic application or holistic review. And when you are looking at schools to apply to, look to see if they do holistic review of their applications. Because what holistic review does is it takes into account what else is going on in a young person's life that may have impacted their academic performance and looks at the array of lived experiences and where you come from. Remember that the recent Supreme Court has now prohibited every program from looking at race and ethnicity now as a criteria. So we can no longer use that as a consideration or application process. However, diversity is still very important in most graduate programs, all professional programs. So schools are beginning to look at novel ways of how they can view diverse applicants. What that means is that's now more dependent upon the applicant to demonstrate how they provide a unique, diverse background and experience to the program. Simply saying, I'm Latino or Black, African American or Asian American, and I come from an immigrant family is not sufficient right now to say you're diverse. It is part of your story, but what else is diverse in what else can you talk about? Are you first generation? Did you grow up in poverty that, challenged you to surmount those obstacles? And what did you learn? Were you the oldest of 7 kids and much of your history was helping to raise your siblings, right? Which is leadership. There's lots of ways to exemplify how you've been a leader in your life that are not simply based upon GPA metrics. So holistic review is a really, really important way of showing how you are fully defined as an individual.
One other question was similar to that, so I'm gonna skip that one. How difficult is it to get into medical schools outside of California?
It is probably, California schools are probably some of the most challenging to get into. Honestly, the UCs, ironically, you would think for California students, they should be top priority. But to get into UCs, you generally have to have quite a good GPA and very solid MCAT scores. So what we recommend is that when you are applying to schools, you look at schools broadly. It is important to consider schools out of state, and it is important to consider the diversity of schools, whether they be DO, MD, combined MD, PhD, so forth. And that's true for PA programs, nursing programs, pharmacy programs, PT programs, so on and so forth. You want to kind of think broadly. Now, having said that, right, you also want to apply to schools where you feel comfortable being. If you know that you will not be happy in Kansas, I'm just pulling that out of a hat, and that's where you remember that's 4 years of your life, then you may want to consider that's not a program you want to apply to. So I think it really depends upon the school and what they're looking at in applicants, and it requires that you do your homework. Okay, there's a whole other webinar that we do for specifically for medical school applications that we may be able to offer a little later in the semester. But broadly defined, you want to make sure that you have an array of diverse schools to apply to, including out of state.
Okay. This one says, how can the school someone attends positively affect someone in respects to going down a health career, maybe things like personality, growth, mindset, studies, life enjoyment, etc.
Boy, that sounds like a really good question, but I'm not quite understanding what the question is. Can you repeat it or maybe clarify?
It says, how can the school someone attends positively affect someone in respects to going down a career in health, maybe things like personality, growth, mindset, studies, life enjoyment, etc.
Are you talking about your undergraduate school, or are you talking about the professional school? Maybe the person who asked that question can clarify, or maybe come on and ask it verbally. I think it sounds like a great question. I'm just not quite clear what it is.
They said they just want to learn more in general because they don't know much at all. Robin, do you want to clarify a little bit?
It sounds like a really great question. I'd love to understand more what it is.
Sure. Sorry, I'm just not that confident that I can explain it too well myself.
That's okay, Robin. Give it a try. I think it's a really great question. I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking.
All right. So, right now I'm like a freshman, and I want to learn more about how like any type of school, whether it be um transferring to a UC or even beyond that, can positively affects my life. And I want to take into accounts for certain things like how it might affect my personality, my growth, my mindset, the studies that I'll be taking, and especially about how much I'll enjoy my life, because at the end of the day, that's like something that I really value, I guess, if not like the most important thing to me.
Absolutely. I think that's a lovely question and a really important one to ask. Look, one of the best ways that we can learn and evolve as a student and as a human being is stepping into those challenges where we may have some discomfort, right? Because we learn so much by leaning into discomfort. So much of what holds us back is our fears and anxieties, right? Whether it be, oh, I'm going to be a failure, or people are going to see that I'm not good enough, or I don't think I'm smart enough or good enough or gregarious enough or extroverted enough, or they're always not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough. And particularly for young people of your generation, right? There's so much out there in the social media where people are trying to be a certain image, and there's kind of this way, of influencers that shows this is how you are kind of the best actualization of yourself. You have to let kind of all of those messages go, my friends. And the best way is to be authentic to who you are as a human being and embrace your fullest sense of who yourself is. And do kind of an inventory. What areas do I want to grow in? Do I want to learn to be more confident? Do I want to step into more leadership opportunities? Do I want to be more social? Do I want to do this, right? Because if you can identify the areas where you want to grow, that's the first step. Actually, no, I would take that back. Let me say this. The first step is do an inventory first of what you feel your strengths are. Too many students focus on their weaknesses and their perceived deficits. We constantly live in this state of I'm not good enough. Many people do, right? And especially when you're in a competitive kind of pre-health arena, it's easy to get onto that I'm not good enough. So the first thing I want each of you to do is make a list of what are my strengths? Where do I excel? And I don't mean academic. I mean as a human being. Okay? I'm sociable, I'm friendly. Like, what would your family and your friends say are the best things about you? And what would you say are the best? That's the first place to start, because it's always best to start from a place of strength and assets. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I bring to the world. And I'm proud of it and I embrace it. Then the second part of that is, okay, what areas would I like to grow in? Not what am I not good at, not where am I bad in, but where are the deltas in your life? Where do you want to make some change? Where do you want to grow? Because that kind of self-assessment is important too. And then you seek out activities where you feel there may be some growth in that area, whether maybe joining a club or maybe taking a dance class where you meet people, or maybe, you know, doing something that would normally not be within kind of your comfort zone, because it's how we grow is through those challenges of stepping out. Maybe simply one of your goals may be, I'm actually going to go to office hours and ask a question. I would never do that. Never do that. But I'm gonna challenge myself, and I'm gonna go to office hours and ask my professor a question. And I'm not going to judge myself because I think it's a stupid question. Okay? That's how you grow. Robin, don't depend upon the school or any outside agency to give anything to you. Part of it is you have to seek it out yourself and make it happen for yourself, right? Because a school is not going to know what you need or where you want to grow. A school may have resources and activities and things that can allow you to do that, but only you can define for yourself those areas that you actually want to evolve and grow in. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
I'm glad you're asking this question as a freshman, because if you're already beginning to ask these questions, that's wonderful. Then you have a wonderful academic journey ahead of you, because each time, each new opportunity will be something to learn from. Also remember, guys, I have to say this, that mistakes are part of growing. If you're not making mistakes, there's something wrong. The best part of being human is making mistakes and then learning from them. Okay? That's how we learn. If everything we did was perfect, then we wouldn't grow. And I'm going to tell you right now, medical schools, PA programs, nursing programs, pharmacy programs are not looking for perfect applicants. We all acknowledge that every single one of you is human, that everybody makes missteps, everybody sometimes stumbles and falls. It's what you learn from those missteps and those falls and the lessons you've learned, you've taken from them. That's what we're interested in. And if you can articulate that, you're one step ahead. Okay? Any other questions?
There's one that says, does the school that you're applying from impact your chances of getting into the school you want to get into?
Is it so the school you are applying from impact your chances? So in other words, being
Your
a
degree, yeah.
I would love to say no. But the reality is, and it's not right. But yes, I think to some extent in some schools, there may be an internal bias, and it is an unspoken bias, that certain schools are perceived as less rigor. So obviously, you know, if you're coming from a Harvard or a Stanford, for some admissions committees, right, they presume that you're getting the best education. The reality is that most people know that CSU educations are some of the finest out there. And we also know that SFSU, if you're a graduate at SFSU, you are a stellar candidate. But yes, there are some folks who have some internal biases that presume that if you don't come from what is called an R1 or a top tier four-year university, you perhaps may not be as competitive. I would not let that shade or distract you from your goals. Okay? Because do CSU graduates get into medical schools and nursing programs and PT programs and pharmacy programs? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I know physicians who went to San Francisco State? Absolutely. Okay? So, but what it means, guys, is sadly because there are some of those biases that do exist, it is very important to do well academically as best as you can, but do not let your GPA define solely who you are. It is not solely who you are. Okay, I know we're at the hour, so a little past it, but I hope this was helpful. I don't know, Emily, what do you think? I know we're past the hour. Are there any other questions? Any urgent questions folks want to address, or Vance? Good, I'm glad it was helpful.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
I just want to know if there was a way I could get some information of you or your company or an email in which we could get in touch so I can maybe ask some questions, a little more personal questions.
Yeah, Aline, what I would advise, unfortunately, I'm unable to kind of share my email because I get so many because of my professional job. I'm afraid that if you send me something that's going to get lost, and I don't want that to happen to any of you. So what I'm going to advise is if you have specific questions, send them to Emily, if that's okay. And then Emily can try to address them initially, and then I can support along with my partner Kalechi to the extent that we are able, because I know there are so many students who have questions with regard to pre-health. I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
if
totally.
you,
Yes.
if you guys are into like any of the clubs on campus, I know those help a lot because there's like the dental club, the pre-vet club, the physician's assistant club. So like those will also be good resources for you guys if you aren't involved in those yet. I would also suggest that you check those out.
Yeah. But guys, do your homework, okay? Start reading up on some of these websites. If you're interested in medicine, go to the AAMC website. They have a great resource on how to prepare for application to medical school. Nursing programs do. The American Academy of Physician Assistants, AP. Oh God, I have these acronyms. I always get confused with them. They have great resources, okay, to provide you with information on how you prepare for entry. But you guys can do this. You guys can do this. Okay, don't let the barriers or the naysayers get you down. You got this. And the other thing, last thing I'm going to say with regard to advisors, we know that there are different, you're going to hear potentially some conflicting information from those who you seek out information on campus. If it doesn't ring true to you, then do your homework. Get a second opinion as you would in medicine, right? You don't like the first information. It doesn't sound right. I think I need a second opinion. If it doesn't sound right, chances are you're correct because, you know, not everybody's has the current information, and recheck it, okay? And don't let anybody say that you're not good enough. If just because you have a GPA doesn't mean that you're not good enough. There's ways of improving it and addressing it and remediating that. And maybe it may require a shift in what your career plans are, right? So there's different ways to serve community and practice healthcare. There are so many jobs out there. And frankly, we're facing so many workforce shortages right now in healthcare and in behavioral health particularly, that right now, because you represent a vast diversity of young people out there in our communities, we need you. So stay focused and stay confident. All right, I'll shut up now.
Well, with that, I would just like to thank Dr. Tomás Magaña for spending time with us tonight. Thank you so much. And also, Emily, thank you so much for putting this together. And I just want to stress that exactly what Tomás said, like really find out what excites you about these different careers and learn about them. Don't wait around. Get yourself educated, ask questions, and attend these kinds of things like you did tonight. So we need you, and we are very excited to help you find your way. So thank you all so much. And with that, I think if there's anything else, Emily, did you want to say anything else?
I just wanted to thank Tomás. Also, I know that you're super busy, so it was great that you could come tonight. And I'll be sending you guys the recording and the PowerPoint so you guys can have that. I know a lot of people have been asking me about that, so you'll all receive it.
Good luck to all of you guys. You can do it.
You can do it.
Si se puede.
Sí, se puede. Good job, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye, y'all.